first semifinal here in Las Vegas, the 2023 National Championships. 3 games left. This is the first of 3. It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for rocking with us all weekend. We can see the handshake there. These are 2 friends, 2 incredible players. 1 great game. Let's get down into it.
So Evan, with the higher seed here, gets to choose whether he wants to go first or second. Opted to choose to go second. We see Lucas to take up his tunic. So Evan saying, you know what, you might leak some arcane into me, but I still have AB2 in the trench and Null gloves, but I want to start the game with tempo because ultimately this is a tempo matchup. Now Lucas starting the game with Warmonger's Diplomacy, and now that really explains why Evan is running the Trench of Sunken Treasure. Now, it's been really interesting to see the evolution of Lexi's in response to cards like Warmonger's Diplomacy and cards like Encase, which Icelanders, were running for quite a while into Lexi to really freeze that hero power, not let them do the hero flip. But Lexis have adapted. They said, we're going to bring Trench now. I don't care about your Encase. I don't care about your Warmonger's Diplomacy. You can't lock me out of my arsenal.
Yeah, the Warmongers here going to just allow Evan to pretty safely arsenal up with 2 arrows. We can see the Falcon Wing and the Heatseeker there ready and raring to go on Evan's turn. A couple little points of Arcane coming across from the Waning Moon follow. Evan did have the 1 pitch ready to go and pay into the Arcane Barrier. So just going down to 39. Time to start this turn off for real with the Falcon Wing. We do have the Rain Razors to go off after it. That's an instant, folks. That's not a non-attack. Warmonger's Diplomacy can't say anything about that. That's 5 damage right to the face.
This is an amazing start for Evan. You really want to start the game with the Falcon Wing. That's another reason he chose to go second, because Voltaire bringing instant speed. He can load arrows on the opponent's turn. Typically, you only get to load 1 arrow, but because of the Falcon Wing, he was able to lead both, and he still drew enough blues to do that, to equipped to load them on the first turn and also send arrows on this turn. This is just an absolutely amazing start from Evan. We might see a potential 4-arrow turn on his first real turn of the game, and Lucas has not used the arsenal yet to disrupt anything as of this point.
It looks like it's just going to be a Polar Blast there in the arsenal. So right now, that's just 1 Frostbite that Lucas can represent. He said in the interview that he can be pretty disruptive on these Rain Razors turns, but when it's only a single Frostbite that can come in, it looks like Evan here might not even give him the chance to disrupt him. He said, I'm just going to give you 7 after 2 huge arrows in its own right. Lucas already down to 24 on this turn. Gonna have to keep that Polar Blast for a later turn. Evan utilized that blue pitch beautifully there to keep himself away from that 1 Frostbite getting in his way.
Absolutely, and we spoke about this. Evan, in his game against Michael Hamilton earlier, spoke about how he feels like he has maybe slightly on the lower side of blues. He has 16 blues versus Michael Hamilton's 18, but right now, at least he's been drawing the blues when he needs them. And I also want to point out Evan's choice of boots over here, opting to run the Purge Grapplers, because he knows Lucas runs all these physical attacks. Now, sometimes when you face against a random Icelander, you don't know, are they on the Arcane version that Rhea Adams really popularized, or are they on the Bulllander version? But because this is top 8, deck lists are open at this point. You know each other's strategies. He's saying, I want my Purge Grapplers rather than snaps. I want to be able to block some damage and put pressure on that way.
I think that's a good point as we see the Icequake here going ahead and going to power up this Heatseeker. Most likely going to have Go Again, so 8 with Go Again, 2 on hits here. The Frostbite going to be an on hit as well as the Heatseeker effect. Time to buy that Polar Blast out of Arsenal. Put a Frostbite in the way of this Hamstring Shot in case there's only a red left for Evan Herndon. That's going to make that Hamstring Shot impossible to play. So time to come in with the Polar Blast, draw a card, and give the Frostbite, and then 3 arcane damage. Evan Herndon down to 29 all of a sudden. Life total's looking a little more even, and 3 cards heading in front of the Heatseeker here.
And we have to shout out Lucas' sequencing here. On the previous turn, you very rightly pointed out he didn't use the Polar Blast because Evan still had floating resources. In this case, Lucas is saying, hey, you know what? You have represented no floating right now. Here's where I'm going to give you the Frostbite. Here's where I'm hoping to actually trip you up. But Evan, very, very fortunately, had that yellow to send that final arrow in the Hamstring Shot. And now these Frostbites against Icelanders, they cannot be understated. Icelander, while she loves taxing other heroes, hates being taxed herself. Those Wounded Bulls, those Fighting Spirits come for exactly 3, and that's why we saw Lucas just put his whole hand down. He's saying, I can't stop a Frostbite this turn, I can't stop the hamstring, may not be able to stop the hamstring shot, so just take my hands as blocking because I can't attack with them anyway because of the Frostbites.
Lucas Oswald already down to 19 and a 10 life deficit to Evan Herndon's 29. This is the semifinals. This is a Channel Lake Frigid in response to the Voltaire activation, and on a turn where Lexi has no arsenal to start the turn, this is going to be a very powerful Channel Lake Frigid. It's time to maybe activate Voltaire a second time before either the Frostbite or the Channel Lake Frigid has had a chance to resolve.
And that is one of the tricks Lexi can do, and that is honestly a bit of a benefit that they didn't have an arsenal over here, because had they had an Arsenal, they would have had to Lexi flip, and they can only Voltaire once, and all that being taxed by the Frostbite on Channel Lake Frigid. He's saying, I don't have an Arsenal, I can double Voltaire before I get taxed at all from your Frostbites and Channel Lake Frigid. This not having Arsenal in this turn actually kind of working out Evan's favor here.
Because look at this, with 2 blue cards in the hand, we're going to be able to pay through this Channel Lake Frigid to play both of these attacks. So this is going to be a Bolton shot 4-5. No reload, but when you're sitting at 19, that's all of a sudden a quarter of your health, and you can face up C that hamstring shot behind with the 2 floating available to pay for it. Now, Lucas Oswald, having to stare down a bunch of damage here, has already had to commit a card to the pitch. So should be only 3 cards left in hand. Can see a sink below to cover up that hamstring shot, but looks like we're just going to put it in front of the Bolton shot, just save some damage, make sure he wants to see if he wants to throw the hamstring shot out as well. This is going to be coming out immediately following. This last game was the game before this a little more slow and steady. This is coming really hot out of the gate.
Yeah, Evan really fortunate finding these really aggressive turns. Finding Lucas really not happy to see Evan with 2 blues on Eternally Resolved Channel Lake Frigid, and we still have yet to see a single 3 of a kind, by the way. That's another card in Evan's, toolbox that he can use to counter Channel Lake Frigid's taxing effect. Now, Lucas over here not caring so much about the hamstring shot hit effect because he didn't even have any attacks. He's just saying, I'm a Coronet Peak to keep my Channel Lake Frigid around and Arsenal the sink below, and I really like this discipline on holding the sink below because not only did it on hit not matter, you put in your Arsenal and you keep Evan guessing. What is the disruptive piece that Icelander has Arsenaled? I don't know, but he might need to play around something like another Channel Lake Frigid, for example. But Lucas is just saying, no, it's just a sink below, but the threat of something disruptive is what really matters here.
Critically, a blue in hand for Evan there to pay into the Winter's Bite and then load his Voltaire as well with the rest of those 2 resources to put an Endless Arrow in back on Lucas's turn, which means that this Codex of Frailty gets to come in and create that Falcon Wing out of Arsenal, and then there's an Endless Arrow waiting to go with 1 pitch floating. Evan is really making this disruption seem like a little bit of a shrug of the shoulders.
Yep, very efficient play by Evan here, and that is one of the benefits that Lexi has in this matchup, which is a lot of passive card advantage, and that's something Icelander hates to see. All these disruptive effects, what Icelander is trying to do is get you to sort of IP yourself in a sense where it's so disruptive that you had to waste cards just paying for disruption. But Lexi has all this passive card advantage. The Codex drawing you upon is the Endless Arrow going back to hand, the Heatseeker giving you more cards. It's making Lucas's life very difficult here.
Now we're going to go ahead and pitch into this Aether Ice Vein. This is going to be 5 arcane damage. It's fused with the Channel Lake Frigid, and now Lucas Oswald has a massive choice ahead of him. This is going to be a very disruptive effect. 5 arcane damage, going to maybe definitely take some cards out of Evan's hand. Looks like we're just going to take the 5 and donate the Endless Arrow to the trigger on the Aether Ice Vein, but now you have the choice to arsenal an incredibly powerful card in this Channel Lake Frigid, or put a second counter on the Channel Lake Frigid you already have by pitching into the Waning Moon. This is a big decision. This could be something that really defines the game. Lucas has made his choice. This is going to be 2 more arcane damage, but critically, a second counter on the Channel Lake Frigid that he already had established, rather than developing a new one, costing another card out of hand.
And I think something that might have swung the decision in the favor that he did is that he doesn't have Tunic on 3, because if he had Tunic on 3, then it's a very efficient play to play a CLF out and then use your Tunic to Waning Moon as well. But without that Tunic on 3, he's saying, you know what, hopefully between the Ice Vein and this extra turn of Channel, that's all I'm going to need to try and claw my way back into the game. You are at 19, I'm at 12, I'm at a life deficit, but there's only a 7 life deficit. With Storm Striders and with Icelander's ability, I can get over that. I just need this 1 extra turn of Channel. But on Evan's side, he's very happy to see the other channel go down to the bottom. He knows there's only 1 other channel unaccounted for in Lucas's deck, and we heard from the interview that is a very important card in this matchup.
All of a sudden, things looking much closer than they were a turn ago. Evan only going to take 2 here. I heard from Lucas after our interview that he was taken aback in their game yesterday by the Perch Grapplers, expecting Snapdragon Scalers from these Lexis. The Perch Grapplers, they're just going to be 2 life points gained. It's time for a 3 of a kind to hit the board. Talk about a powerful card package. As you said, the life deficit much closer. This is looking, like a pretty classic Lexi and Icelander game. Is Lucas going to be able to survive a 3 of a kind?
And Lucas might be regretting pitching the Channel Lake Frigid earlier, because when you play a fresh one out, you get to keep it an extra turn overall. So he's definitely regretting not being able to freeze out this 3 of a kind. So let's see what Evan can do. I think I saw another 3 of a kind in his hand. Did he draw all 3 at once, basically?
You're telling me that he might have 3 of a kind? 3 of a kinds? Will the convention center explode? Is this the end?
Oh, and Lucas, all he had was his frosting on 3 of a kind and not the disruption that you want, just a single frostbite, just a single arcane damage. Now, on the bright side, he didn't need to pitch for this, so, you know, he still has 4 cards in hand to block with, but let's see, and Evan critically did draw the blue, and yes, that is the third 3 of a kind, so Evan might have back-to-back-to-back 3 of a kind turns. Lucas feeling a little bad that he couldn't have matched this with a back-to-back-to-back channeling frigid turns. He had the option, he chose to do the thing that he did, and let's see how the rest of his turn goes, and Evan still with the resources to play through this Blizzard as well.
So this is going to be a Blizzard out of hand. So this represents a Frostbite, but also need to pay to continue to give it go again. It looks like we are just going to pitch the second 3 of a kind to play another 3 of a kind. So it's now time for 3 more cards, only 1 more Voltaire activation, but with Lexi on the offensive here and Lucas at 8, 1 more arrow is enough to push maybe half of Lucas's life total.
Evan is playing this really, really well. He's just using his 3 of a kinds right now. There's no more 3 of a kinds left in the deck. One's in a pitch, 2 have been used. He is saying, look, I need to get you to low enough that you cannot fuse another Ice Vein, because remember, Ice Vein costs 3 cards Lucas needs to hold to be able to fuse it, and Evan's recognizing that the only way Lucas has back into this game, with especially that second Channeling Frigid gone to the bottom, either he finds his third Channeling Frigid, or he fuses an Ice Vein and manages to disrupt me a bunch. And Evan is saying, I'm not giving you that space. I'm going to use all my 3 of a kinds. It doesn't matter. As if I can get you low enough to the point that you cannot fuse another Ice Vein against me the rest of this game, I have this in the bag.
This is a Bolton shot here, and this reload couldn't be more relevant. 2 floating means anything that's in the hand there that gets reloaded will be able to be played as long as it's an attack action and not something like an Ice Quake. We're going to go ahead and check the graveyard perhaps, or just give it a little look over, just give it a little, there we go, let's go ahead and check it. We do still have the Coronet Peak and the Ironrod Gauntlet available to block with 3 cards left in hand there. I think one of them might be a Fine Bell's Fighting Spirit or a Wounded Bull, some kind of 3 cost. Big attack there for the Icelander player here, but all of a sudden, the game is far from over, but if Lucas is not able to establish some kind of disruption or some kind of damaging pivot, he's just going to run out of life.
So Lucas is in a very, very big pickle here, because if he wants to stop the reload, he can just give 1 card with the Coronet Peak like you were saying, but if he wants to send the big attack, he's going to be off in Arsenal. He already used the Frosting from Arsenal, he used the Blizzard from hand, he only has 3 cards remaining. If he sends 1 to block, he's sending 2 cards to block this reload, keeping the Coronet Peak, getting to refresh our Arsenal, but very critically not sending any pressure back at the Lexi.
Lexi's going to have a full 5 card hands to work off of here. Evan's done, I mean, that pitch stack there was like 6 cards deep for a moment there, just working all the way through all the disruption, has found the resources he needs when he needs it. Lucas is just going to Arsenal and pass here, basically putting his destiny in no small part in the hands of the draw here for Evan, and not just the draw, the sequencing. We've seen him just play this masterfully.
Absolutely, and now starting the turn with a Frostbite once again, just making Lucas's life a little difficult. Now Lucas did activate a Tunic here in response to a Frostbite, so this is quite telegraphed that he probably has a defense reaction somewhere, either in his hand or in his arsenal, or maybe he needs the exact 3 for to play his arsenal, like a Cold Snap or something, but you can still wait on that. It looks like he doesn't want to pitch anything to play a defense reaction, hence the Tunic response.
Perhaps the Rain Razors being donated to the pitch here, something you might be happy to see if you're Lucas. That's a lot of power on 1 card that you might be happy to see head to the bottom of the deck. Time to load up a drill shot in the arsenal, and we are going to just give it the go again without deploying that Ice Quake. Would rather keep the +3 effect for a more damaging on hit, even though that Frostbite effect would be on the whole chain here. So that's a pretty interesting play here from the Lexi folks.
Well, it's also very, very disciplined because he doesn't have a blue in hand. So if playing out the 1-cost Ice Quake, that might just stop you from sending a whole and extra arrow potentially. So he's being very disciplined. He's saying, you know what, you still have that 3rd Channeling Frigid unaccounted for, this Blizzard that Lucas did respond with. He's saying, I'm going to keep my resources. I'm not going to get greedy playing out this Ice Quake. It's okay. It can stay here until I find a blue and be more comfortable to play with it, because it is, after all, a card with Go Again, and it is face up. He still has an extra Arsenal zone, so he doesn't need to play it here. Very, very disciplined play from Evan here, really showing why he's out here in the semifinals of the US Nationals.
This is going to be the Tunic given for the block. That Blizzard, he did pay into it, Evan did, but it was enough to stop the turn. This is a 3-cost 4/8 Wounded Bull, threatening to put Evan very much in the kill range. If you go below 12, go below 11, that is where Icelander can just blow you out. So 2 Remorselesses going to be donated to the blocking cause here. Evan, understanding that fact very clearly, just going to go down to 15. Talk about a couple of zoomers. This game certainly has been zooming.
Definitely.
I'm sorry. I had to make it. I had to say the joke. I just had to do it.
And this time Evan did find the blue, and here we see him opt to deploy the Ice Quake after flipping Lexi, after showing the Codex, and then having enough resources to Voltaire in. And this is, again, very, very disciplined play by him. He's doing all these actions, waiting for Lucas to present a Frostbite. If Lucas had presented a Frostbite, we might have seen Evan say, all right, I'm not going to send the arrow, I'll just Codex something since I can only do one action. But he's saying, you haven't given me a Frostbite yet? Likely not an Ice card in Arsenal. It could be one of those red big attacks that you are so fond of. So I do have all the space in the world. I'm going to send this arrow at you with the Ice Quake Frostbite on it, really making your efficient 3 resource 8s now 4 resource 8s. Not very good if this Frostbite hits.
And without the Tunic, there are not going to be no other recourses to get extra resources for Lucas here on the Icelander side. This is 7 damage. It represents a Frostbite on hit, and the next attack costs an additional 1. 2 taxing effects against the deck that's trying to tax. Might feel unfair if you're the Icelander player here, but a little bit of her own medicine. Both these Icy heroes don't like a lot of Frostbites, but Lexi here having so many cards to work with through engines like the 3 of a kind, through these codexes that are able to recur these pieces, replace themselves with the Ponder, just an absolute powerhouse of a card. This is going to be interesting to see which player is able to land on top. It's going to be close.
Both these Aura heroes, honestly, kind of hypocritical in that sense. They love to dish out all the taxes in the world, but you tax them a little bit and they start complaining out of their mind. They're like, no, you made all my passive card advantage so incredibly inefficient. This is not okay.
It wouldn't be the American National Championships if the players were not complaining about taxes. That's why this is the American National Championships.
So now Evan over here, actually, with the face-up codex, actually has given Lucas a very, very difficult decision, because even if Lucas wants to play out that Arsenal, well, now that Codex really punishes you for that, because then Lucas will be forced with that empty Arsenal to put one of those big attacks in his Arsenal and discard a card. So the face-up Codex actually putting Lucas in quite a bit of a pickle here. You might want to disrupt the turn, but if you do, with your Arsenal, now the Codex disrupts you even further because you had to discard now that your Arsenal's empty. So this is absolutely amazing. And Evan, again, this Codex, at this point, there's no priority for Lucas to respond, so Evan is free to find the 1 cost, whereas had Lucas responded with a Frostbite before the Codex resolved, then we would have seen Evan find a 0 cost over here. So that's another one of those tricksy things, tricksy advantages that Lexi has over Icelander with cards like Codex, with the instant speed Volta activations that we've seen him use to such great effect.
And we're just going to have to donate the whole hand here. No disruption online for Lucas. Oswald had to leak just 2 damage, going down 2-7. This is going to be close, folks. We can see he's drawn maybe another Wounded Bull. That is a 2-block. Lexi here, though, because of that Ponder, going to go ahead and reload the Arsenal with a random card. Trencher Sunken Treasure here. Double duty as a Arcane Barrier source, as well as a way to get rid of an Arsenal. But you wouldn't want to get rid of that Arsenal if you're the Lexi player here. That's a Codex of Inertia.
And this is just, once again, the same question to Lucas. Are you going to empty your Arsenal to disrupt me, but then get disrupted by my Codex of Inertia? Because that will force you to put a card in Arsenal and force you to discard. So Lucas really not happy to see these back-to-back Codexes. He talked about this in an interview. This matchup on the Lexi side is about the Codexes, is about the 3 of a kinds. And we saw all 3 of a kinds, and now the Codexes are coming in. Codex of Inertia, if you don't use that Arsenal, it will get wasted away. The Inertia will just send it straight to the bottom. So Lucas in a very, very precarious situation over here.
I think you've been highlighting it really well, Punkage, that the way that Evan has played these cards, it's not just that they're powerful, it's the way he's deployed them in the manner he has, at the timing he has, understanding the priority, utilizing, even on that Winter's Bite turn, utilizing, or the Aether Ice Vein, having to the presence of mind to activate Voltaire, get that Endless Arrow in his arsenal, utilizing all his resources. Evan Herndon with powerful cards at his disposal, but it's showing why he's one of the final 2 Lexis to make it this far in the tournament.
Absolutely, and cards like Codex of Frailty, especially when you have 1 floating, we talked about it, there's so much flexibility. You're going to give me a Frostbite? Fine, I'll find a 0 cost and pay through a Frostbite. You're going to not give me a Frostbite? Here you go, here's a 1 cost. And critically, because after Codex resolves, there is no priority window for Lexi, for the Iceland to give you a Frostbite. After that, you start with priority once Codex resolves. Evan is free to make plays like this. He's really showcasing the power of these cards against Icelander.
This is just going to be a drill shot coming in 4-4. That Coronet Peak hasn't blocked yet, so if this hit going to go ahead and give a -1 defense counter to the Coronet Peak. Again, we talked about this in an earlier game, changing the breakpoint defense value from a 5 to a 4, which in a deck like Lexi, those 5 power arrows are incredibly damaging, and it looks as though Lucas here just gonna have to take the 4 and head on down to 3. Life totals becoming very precarious.
So opting to preserve the Coronet Peak here, perhaps he wants to really rely on the final Channeling Frigid, because trying to deploy Channeling Frigid without Coronet Peak can potentially be really difficult. It's difficult for you to keep the Channeling Frigid around on the future turn. You really want to pitch Ice Cut to Coronet Peak to keep it, but it looks like That's quite a few 2 blocks in his hand right there, Sam. He had to give the Coronet peek up in the end to stop the Heatseeker on hit, and two blocks.
And we've got a red Aether Ice Vein in the zone there for Lucas. He's going to deploy it on his own turn. It is fused with an Ice Bolt. No Tunic online to help out that Ice Bolt, but he really hedged his bets. He said, I have to park this red Aether Ice Vein in Arsenal, and I have to stay alive long enough for it to matter. Evan heading on down to 10, which is that critical life total deficit, zone, shall we say, below 12, where it really can become possible for the Icelander to blow out her opponent. But when Icelander's sitting at 3, you have to make that decision very quickly, and when you have to make that decision quickly, Evan has plenty of cards in his hand that he can use on the defensive side.
And the Ice Vein there buying Lucas just a tiny bit of space. Evan had to discard the Falcon Wing, but critically, it gave Evan information. He knows exactly that there's an Ice Bolt in Lucas's arsenal, and that actually reduces the reach of the kill turn by 1, because the maximum kill turn is 12 with Emeritus, 5 arcane damage from hand, and 3 from Waning Moon. But Evan knows that now Lucas's maximum reach is actually only 11, and he does have AB2, so he can math it out now. He has agency here. He's saying, as long as I can keep an extra 2 resources and continue presenting lethal to you, I am safe. Your reach is maximum 11. I just need to hold 2 resources, and I am safe from any kill turn that you can do on me.
Wow. That is a very, very good point. Knowing that until that Ice Bolt leaves the arsenal, Evan really does understand this is the maximum damage I can threaten while not leaving myself open to getting blown up by Storm Striders. So this is really going to be fascinating to see which player ends up coming on top, because it's going to come down to who is able to present the right threats in the right order. This right now, however, is just an Ice Quake powering up an Endless Arrow, another Frostbite on hit, and the Endless Arrow heading on back to hand if it hits. Not something Lucas wants to see happening.
And at this point, no more armor for Lucas to deal with his breakpoints. The only thing that you could potentially have is a D-React, and perhaps that's what's happening here, because maybe he's paying through a Frostbite. He's paying for the Ice Bolt. He's saying, okay, I see your 1 floating. I know you want to activate Voltaire, so I'm going to make you pitch an extra card to activate Voltaire if you want to. Also, he's asking Evan the question, do you want to use your extra resources now, or potentially, get even lower, get closer to the kill zone that we've been talking about?
Now, also a face-up staring down this Codex of Inertia. Because Lucas just emptied his arsenal, that Codex is now online for him as well. So that means if the Codex of Inertia is played, which it can be played through the Frostbite with that 1 floating, that Codex of Inertia going to take the top card of Lucas's deck, put it into their arsenal, and then he's going to have to discard a card.
I love the sequencing from Lucas here. So you send the Ice Bolt first. You let Evan think, oh, I'm just sending, raw damage. Evan says, okay, I'm gonna, I'm gonna leak the entire Ice Bolt. I want to keep my resources to send attacks at you because I need to pay through his Frostbite. And Lucas says, haha, got you. You took the full 3. Here's my Blizzard. No more attacks from you. But I leaked a full 3. And now, though he did have to give up an arsenal for this, so he just has Striders up. And once again, because of the lack of arsenal, Evan can math out exactly the kill range. The kill range now is 8. 5 arcane damage spell from hand with the Waning Moon for 3. So Evan just says, as long as I just keep, once again, 2 resources. I just keep 2 resources, I can only leak, and then I will at most take 6, and I'll be presenting lethal to you this entire time.
Yeah, so this is going to be a tricky little pickle for Lucas to try to work through. This is a 4 damage breakpoint. The reload not going to matter, but the 4 damage certainly relevant coming in with Go again.
And Sam, he has a Rain Razors in his hand. Is this a combat trick? Is this it? Is it a defense reaction in Lucas's hand?
He has a Storm Striders.
He's saying
this might just be a little bit of a last gasp. Aether Hail, Waning Moon. That's the fist bump.
That's it.
Evan Herndon has taken down the semifinal, taking down Lucas